above Public Square here in Watertown, New York, on a gorgeous Thursday morning. That's me, and along with myself, of course, is the star of the show. That's Chris Pacifici on his own history through the eyes of a millennial. This is the first time we've done this on video, Chris,
Yes.
but not the first time Chris and I have talked about many things through Chris's eyes. Chris is a young man in his 20s, knows quite a bit about a lot of pop icons from the 20th century, not to mention movies, TV shows, and the history that goes along with it. Because as you know, Chris, and we've discussed this, there's a lot to be said about pop culture, about Hollywood.
Yes.
And also that can be identified with the times when they were made and the years and subject matter that they depicted. But one thing is for sure, that Chris Pacifici, being an Italian American himself, is a huge fan of gangster movies. Needless to say, Godfather, Goodfellas, the usual suspects. But today we're going to, because we've been talking about The Sopranos and James Gandolfini and the greatest TV show of all time. No
Yes.
question in my mind.
Oh, no.
And I'm sure you would agree with that. So today we're
Yes.
going to focus on that exclusively. And I'm sure from time to time we might get off the beaten path, because that's how we operate here at History Through the Eyes of a Millennial with Chris Pacifici. So let's get right into it.
Yes.
So it starts in 1999. All right. So 1999 it starts. I'm watching it on HBO. And I barely knew that I was an HBO subscriber, Chris. So here it is. I'm watching the show, and it's a bunch of guys from New Jersey, and immediately I get hooked. Because,
Yeah.
and here's the main thing, and again, I know we talked about this, and it deserves to be mentioned. There's nothing better than watching a movie, TV show, whatever the case might be, where the characters seem so real, because I don't know these people.
Right.
I know James Gandolfini later on was in the movies that I had seen, like Get Shorty and whatnot. It didn't matter to me. This guy was Tony Soprano.
Yes.
Paulie Walnuts, I saw him here and there. He was a familiar
Yeah.
face, but he was Paulie Walnut, so forth and so on. So did you get the same feeling that because you didn't know these guys, that they were real gangsters to you?
Yes, I think that's what added to the show's success. They didn't really know these guys very well, and they could easily, blend in as easily make you think they're real life gangsters. Like Silvio, I could believe Silvio.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, Silvio. Who else? Christopher Moltisanti.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Of course, and again, I'm familiar with him because he played Spider. I've seen him in other things.
Yeah.
But you got associated with these people after their success with Sopranos. And of course, up until that point in the 90s, the mob was essentially, I hate to say this for any Italian Americans who still think the mob is existing today, and they do, but not to the level they did back in the early part of the 20th century, or for that matter, during the 70s and 80s and even 90s. So the late 90s, the mob wasn't what it used to be. Giuliani and the federal government cracked down on them and whatnot. So these guys became the new mob for society.
A new mob for a new generation.
Yeah, and done so well. David Chase,
Yes.
who did the Rockford Files with James Garner, other things, but he was most famous for that. Great show. I remembered it growing up, and I was a young kid and whatnot. But this was the most raw show I have ever seen in my life. Chris, do you agree?
By far. I mean, they did so many stuff that like outweighed the normal thinking how we did TV shows.
Sorry about that, Chris. I just hit the board.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
No, because it brought a new meaning to gangster a TV show, like especially particularly an HBO TV show. But they show things you couldn't show on like regular daytime TV
Oh,
shows.
not even close.
I mean, in the first episode when Tony's taking Meadow on a college tour, and like he strangles a guy who was a rat for the FBI.
Right, one of the best episodes.
And my favorite episode was when Paulie and Christopher were in the Pine Barrens.
Yeah.
Having to deal with the Russian guy. And I like how when Tony gives Paulie the call, he said that he killed, and Polly's saying to Christopher, he killed 16 Czechoslovakians. The guy was an interior decorator. His house looked like shit.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and of course, he was at the time he couldn't talk to Tony. It was a bad connection on the phone.
Yeah.
They were lost in the forest. Again, one of many episodes where there were unanswered questions.
Yeah.
So just like the ending, everyone talks about the last episode, but that one, people wanted to know the answer to that, right, Chris?
Yeah, I think everyone will know. Did Tony get whacked at the end?
Well, yeah. Did Tony get whacked? And what happened to the Russian? What happened to the guy that raped Dr. Melfi?
Yes.
I mean, again, there was a lot of unanswered questions with a lot of those things.
That was
Chris.
that was a graphic scene.
Oh,
Poor
unbelievable.
Dr. Milfy.
Yeah, and again, that's the type of show The Sopranos was. It was like a box of chocolates. You never knew what you were going to get. So any given episode, it might have been the dream sequences, which I was a little, whatever.
Yeah.
But even the worst episode of The Sopranos is still 16 times better than any other episode of any show since. And I know I'm sounding just over the top, but it's the truth, Chris. So a lot of unanswered questions. The ending itself,
Yes.
there in the restaurant, leaves us hanging. Tragically, was it 2013?
Yes.
James Gandolfini goes on a trip to Rome, Italy, and he dies of a massive heart attack. In the process, his Rolex is stolen. And again, we go back to the episodes where they go to Italy and they kind of mock it, where they said, "Geez, this isn't the Italy that we thought." Just watching
Yeah.
TV, and they say it's a little dirty. The people are rude. And it's somewhat symbolic that happened when he got robbed while he was having that heart attack. It was a horrible part of that story.
It was. Do you think it's like sort of payback for him? Like, it obviously he was saying it in character mode.
Yeah, right.
When they were saying that, it wasn't saying that they didn't really think that in real life.
Yeah, because he was taking Tony Soprano's watch and not James Gandolfini's watch, so that he deserves this. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were saying.
No, go ahead.
And someone was saying, people were saying that we lost Tony Soprano, and David Chase said, we didn't lose Tony Soprano, we lost James Gandolfini.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, and that's why. And here's the thing. James Gandolfini, like I said, did other movies that I didn't know he was in Get Shorty. I didn't know he was in this movie. He was in the Quentin Tarantino movie. And what was that movie where he has a big fight with the Arquette girl, something romance, whatever it was, unbelievable scene. But
Yes.
nonetheless, James Gandolfini, unfortunately, definitely got pigeonholed into that character because I think it was going to affect him for the rest of his life, actually, because I saw him in The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 and other movies. He was in The Mexican with Brad Pitt, and it was tough to watch because that was Tony, not James.
Yeah, did you see him he did a movie with Julia Louis-Dreyfus called Enough Said?
No, I didn't see that.
I think it was a year before, 1 year or the year he died.
Huh? Well,
they
was it
completed
released after he died on one of those deals?
I think it was before or after he died.
That's a shame. And again, a real talent, but the way he just changed his voice. Oh, what the fuck? Again, when he spoke, James Gandolfini,
Yeah.
that was his normal voice.
Yeah.
And that was a great voice. Don't get me wrong. Great actor. The Last Castle, which, for instance, he did movies that I think if he had to do it all over again, he probably wouldn't have, because he questioned The Last Castle with Robert Redford. He said they changed the script in midstream, which I still can't understand how that can happen. But they did. And then he did The Mexican and The Big Board, and that movie didn't do it all that well. So some bad decisions, but you know what? Every actor makes bad decisions in their career.
There always have like a few bad movies that were written poorly or box office flops or stuff like that.
Ishtar is a perfect example. Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman, you don't see him anymore, unfortunately, but because of the cancel culture. Okay, but we're talking about The Sopranos. So The Sopranos, 1999 to 2007.
Yes.
Okay, now they broke the seasons down into sometimes there were 12 episodes, sometimes there were 6. They took forever to make. What was the deal there? Why couldn't they come up with 12 episodes per season?
Because I think they were trying to pack so much into the storyline to help bring up this epic conclusion at the end of each season. Like, I think, remember at the end of season 5 when the FBI raids Johnny Sack's house?
Yes.
And Tony and Johnny are sitting on his back porch there talking, and then Tony sees like the FBI and he's like looking at John, and he just takes off.
Yeah, right.
And Johnny's like looks at me like, oh my, and he like, oh my effing Christ, and he takes off too, and he runs. And Tony, I mean, as big as he is, was able to like outrun Johnny.
Yeah. Well, that's that. Yeah, that's how they portray. I don't know if they could have done that in real life, but yes, I remember that ending.
And he dumps the pistol, and he runs all the way back to his house, and he calls up his lawyer, and he says, the feds just hit Johnny Sack. Do you know anything? And he's like, but big long story short, he was saying that how this guy Jimmy Petrillo was a cooperator for the FBI, and how Brooklyn, USA took down the whole Petrillo group plus Johnny, and how it erased all the way to Carmine Sr. if he was still alive.
Yeah, right.
And he was saying he gave him gambling, trafficking, homicides, 18 years worth. And but Tony was like, "Now they're coming after me." He said, "No, it was Brooklyn. They weren't coming after you."
Right.
So yeah, I'd say take it Just like take a breath.
Yeah, right, right, and that's and so they basically got a pass into the. But he was always on the brink of getting arrested.
Yeah.
Obviously, living that lifestyle. That's what it portrayed. And the main thing is, you went back to the one episode when he went up to Vermont or New Hampshire looking for colleges for Meadow.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, beautiful woman.
Jamie Lynn Spears, yes.
Just a gorgeous. And I'm just kind of shocked, getting off the beaten path here, that she hasn't. I haven't seen her in other things. She was a tremendous actress, Chris. I mean, just tremendous. Not to mention a great looking. But I haven't seen. Okay, so that episode where they go up there, one of the classic episodes, and like you said, from season one. But what controversial about that, it was like, okay, even though this is HBO, we can get away with graphic, content, nudity, obviously language, but in as far as the main character killing someone, especially that way, strangling them at the end.
Yes.
The producers, I would assume David Chase. And others said, "Is should we do this, or should we have someone else kill this guy for him?" But he does, and it worked out in the end, obviously, because
Yeah.
Tony's not a good guy.
No, I would go as far to say he's a sociopath.
Yeah, sure, yeah,
Yeah, he is, and plus, and someone was saying that Tony's the protagonist. He's not the hero.
right. No, and he's not. But at the same time, he's a dad,
Yeah, he's a husband and a friend,
a husband,
a brother.
he's screwing on a brother, and he's got the two sisters.
Yes.
One of which doesn't want anything to do with the family, and then you get Janice,
Yeah.
who, by the way, he was in a movie with Janice. On at least one occasion, and it was shot in my neighborhood in Queens at the
Oh,
Cross
really?
Bay Theater. Yeah, I
Wow.
forget the name of it, but it was who was someone else was in it, and she had an overdone New York accent. I can't stand when people do that. But anyway, it was okay. But yeah. So anyway, all right. So we're talking Sopranos. So some seasons had less episodes. Some the anticipation of waiting for the next seasons. I just remembered in between seasons. It was like a long summer vacation, so
Yeah.
it just wasn't going to get there.
Right.
But when it did, you were at your TV every Sunday night, I believe, at 9:00, and then ultimately I would watch the shows after The Sopranos,
Yeah.
like Big Love, whatever it was. But again, I don't watch it anymore because that was my Sunday night, Chris.
Yeah.
We lost that.
I know.
We really lost that, and then the crappy ending, and then he dies. Now. They're making what was the name of it? The Saints of Newark, or what? They're making the movie about it. It's a prequel.
Yeah, let's just start James Gandolfini's son.
Yeah, yeah.
Playing a younger version of him.
And they got a young junior. In fact, I believe the young junior is being played by someone who his grandson at least is portraying Junior in this, and he's from Queens too, in my neighborhood of Woodhaven. So I can't wait to see it. It was supposed to be out. Apparently, it was supposed to be out earlier, but due to COVID, they've delayed it. A great anticipation, Chris. Do you think if James Gandolfini was alive, obviously they would have, to some degree, have brought that show back, or what say you?
I don't know what he would have thought. I mean, I think he would have been happy that his son was playing a younger version of him, like a prequel.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he didn't want to die. So
No, he
just
didn't
say
wanna die.
hypothetically he was still around. I would assume. There's no doubt by this point HBO would have revived that show, but without him, obviously they just couldn't do that.
No, and it's like, we're seeing flashbacks with Tony and his family, particularly his father.
Right.
His father was a tough, Italian guy.
Right.
Crazy. He looked crazy.
He did look crazy. And by the way, just for the record, just a couple weeks ago, he passed away. The guy who played him.
Really?
And he had that. Yeah, you're right. He had that kind of like he's a gambler. He had that Tony look to him.
Yeah.
And when he was chopping off the guy's pinky in the butcher shop,
yeah.
and with the gabagoo. Again, so authentic, like it happened, like it was real.
I know.
Watching The Godfather, I didn't know who Luca Brasi was as an actor and whatnot. To me, he was the bad guy that got killed with the knife in his hand, and but at the bar scene. They're done so well, Francis Ford Coppola, obviously. So when they portray these things like they did, when the guy's getting strangled up in the college town there. He looks like he's getting strangled, Chris. He looks like he's getting killed there.
I know. It's like it's so real. He looks like he's being suffocated.
It really does, and that's the again we saw that over the years. I was watching an interview with Ernest Borgnine. He was in The Wild, whatever movie it was. They started adapting different things where blood packets would blow up when you got shot. Now, back in the old
Yeah.
days, you would just like spin around and die, or whatever. But then packets started like that, happening in the late 60s. And then Francis Ford Coppola comes out with The Godfather. Very graphic. So
yes.
obviously, David Chase took it to the next level. I mean, we're talking about bad boys, nothing held back here,
No.
a lot of nudity. These guys did their own thing. So, but then the characters, again, season 2, I told you this recently, Chris, watching The Sopranos, bought a binge. That's the way I like to refer to it. So I binged
Yeah.
all of them. One season I did not binge.
No,
Do you know what season? I think if you remember me telling you this.
it was season 2.
Season 2. I didn't want to watch. I watched all the seasons except season 2 because Richie scared the shit out of me. What say you?
He is, but it's like, and I think Tony looked like, like Tony and Silvio and Christopher seemed more afraid of him than Tony was.
Right. Because he just had that whole fuck you attitude. And you've seen that guy before. And if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, I think he might have been offered the role of Tony beforehand, or I read things over the years. Did you know this about this? But he was in Shawshank Redemption, a lot of other things. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he went up, and then of course Ralphie comes in
Yes.
seasons 3 and seasons 4. If I'm not mistaken, Chris, am I all right on that? I know he was there for 2 seasons.
Yes, and I think Ralphie and Richie were on the way to becoming serial killers.
Oh, without a doubt.
Both of them.
So Ralphie, well-known actor.
Yes.
And so he is, the one episode that everyone talks about is, it's like, Ralphie, yeah, when he kills his girlfriend with the
His
braces.
pregnant girlfriend.
His pregnant girlfriend.
20 years old.
20 years old. And again, and here's the thing, just the way you said that, he's 20 years old. This is an actor. This didn't happen, but it's so real when he beats her up in the parking lot, and he beats her up to the point of dying. Where
Bashes
you
her
actually
against the
bash her against the
guardrail.
guardrail, and then he comes back in and he puts his hand in the ice or whatever it was. They're at a party,
Yeah.
and then Tony's, "What the fuck? What'd you do?" And then they go out there, they realize he did it, and it was like, ugh. This beautiful young girl that tried to get Tony's attention earlier in the episode to no avail. But so that was the again, these are the fierce sides of characters. And then when, of course, Ralphie gets killed in the kitchen while making eggs, you felt like he over the horse.
Yeah, over the horse,
Over
yeah.
the horse. So, and again, at the same time, Ralphie's like, my kid got hit in the head with one of those lawn darts and whatnot, so he wanted some sympathy. No sympathy for this guy. I'm so glad that guy was killed, Chris.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying, someone on YouTube did a list of TV characters that got what they deserved.
Yeah.
And Ralphie was one of them.
Isn't that funny? Let me ask the question. Do you remember the other ones on that list? That's an interesting list right there.
Yeah, another one was Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think Gus deserved to die, but I enjoyed his character. He was interesting to watch. He was so calm, like so meticulous, so like he was so unpredictable, Gus, and he was such a charming, like smooth, rasé kind of guy. He's just he only had you never saw one side to him. And people were saying, when he did his own killings, someone said that this guy must carry a lot of rage behind that calm facade.
Yeah.
I think he does. I think he does, Gus, carry a lot of rage with him.
So talking about Breaking Bad, obviously a lot of comparisons because Sopranos was off the air in 2007. Breaking Bad, when did that start, Chris? Do you remember?
It started in 2008, ended in 2013.
Okay, all right. So basically the same run, essentially. If you put I'm sure they made more episodes, whatever the deal was. But I'm sorry, I tried to get into the show. We're here obviously to talk about The Sopranos, but obviously the comparisons, because even though it wasn't an HBO show, they did show a lot of graphic violence and so forth.
And guts.
And guts, yeah. But again, I just didn't get into it. I saw the style of the show. Brian, whatever is the Cranston, great
Cranston.
actor,
Yeah,
no doubt
great
about
actor.
it. A good theme, but still not The Sopranos, Chris. I'm sorry.
No,
A lot of people compare it.
I couldn't get into Breaking Bad either. I watched the first.
Oh, okay.
few
I thought you were a
seasons.
big fan. Yeah.
I watched the first few seasons of Breaking Bad, but I had a hard time getting into it. I did the same with The Walking Dead, and
Alexis, stop. Alexis talking to us for some reason. Go ahead.
I did the same thing with The Walking Dead and Dexter.
Yes.
I watched the first 4 seasons of Dexter, but after the 4th season, I just lost interest. And this was the episode where it was the season finale where Rita was killed by Trinity.
See, now, again, I watched Dexter. I liked him in 6 Feet Under when he played the gay mortician with his brother there. I thought it was very well done. That show went on for 4 or 5 seasons. But here's the thing. TV shows, and we've seen this in the past. Justified was another one. The first episode was one of the best seasons I've ever seen on TV at all, other than The Sopranos and so forth. But Justified was with Timothy Olyphant, whose career went nowhere. I'm surprised. I think he's very good. Was very good. But the very next season, it seems like they just lost all of their creative ability. Like the writers went on strike or went somewhere else. Same thing with other shows over the years. By the third, fourth season, it kind of tails out. The Sopranos, even though people criticize some of the seasons, some of the episodes, Chris, it never died. Never lost your attention.
No, I think you're talking about like how shows by the third or fourth season like kind of lose like their flavor.
Yeah, they do.
That we fell in love with.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
developed taste for. Yeah, I think that's the case with the Vampire Diaries. But by season 4, like the flavor had changed from the first 3 previous seasons.
Right.
It just lost that lackluster we fell in love with.
Yeah, and I guess it comes down to you got creative people that create these shows, and they get on the air. And that in itself is a huge accomplishment. It takes a lot of money to get there through the pilot, through Hollywood production service, whatever, and then it has to be a success. Now these days with Netflix, you could basically pitch an idea to Netflix and it gets on the air, especially if it's attached to the former presidents, like Barack Obama and his wife. But in the old days, it was that accomplishment. But again, it was you've heard of the 7-year itch.
Yeah.
It's about the third or fourth season things start to fall apart for a typical sitcom.
The TV show Lucifer that was on Fox got canceled, but Netflix picked it up and
interesting.
continued on from there. But getting back to Vampire Diaries, the show I enjoyed watching it. I thought the first few seasons were very well written.
Yeah.
Characters were very interesting. I loved all like how like their storylines were fleshed out.
Sure.
I enjoyed characters of future seasons, but yeah, it got like there's so much killing. It's like the killing would build up. Like you knew like eventually this particular character was going to get killed,
Right.
Or or this was going to happen, or you're hoping this character was going to have this interaction with this character. This is going to happen,
Right.
But yeah, it just lost that like that taste that we were intoxicated with.
Well,
upon
okay.
first.
So obviously, Chris here knows a lot more about the more current TV shows over the years, but he knows a lot about a lot of shows from my generation and prior to me even being born and so forth, older movies. But you have a great sense of things that, like Netflix shows and the Vampire Diaries and whatnot, things that I'm not acclimated with. And of course, today we're talking about The Sopranos. But would you agree at your young age, The Sopranos is a tough act to topple? Do you think we'll ever have a show as good as that show in the future at all time, at any time?
Not that I can foresee. No, I mean, there's. I don't think this show holds a candle. You heard the TV show Billions?
No, I never did.
Yeah, it's about like this guy. He's a billionaire. Pretty much owns most of like New York, all these apartment buildings
Yeah.
and all that. Basically, I think he's corrupt. I think obviously the guy who portrays him looks corrupt, and I think I've seen this. I can't remember his name. Is like some kind of like I don't know, is investigating him or what. But
Right.
it looks like an interesting show.
So, isn't it disappointing with all the outlets that we have these days, Chris? We have Netflix. Obviously, the networks are still creating stuff. You and I talked about the remakes. Hawaii Five-0 is marginally good. I watched the Equalizer with Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
I've never seen such bad acting, such bad writing. Just even again with all the technology with digital cameras and whatnot, things just look like they're shot like Three's Company. It just doesn't look right. Again, again, growing up in the way I looked at things, and that's why I watching The Sopranos was such a breath of fresh air. Now again, it's been over 22 years since it came out, but up until that point, I was just thinking, movies weren't as good as they were in my opinion, at least. So when The Sopranos came out, it was like wow, this good creativity still exists. And then of course, 7-8 years later, it comes to a real stale conclusion.
Yes.
Everyone's wondering if it ever will happen. And then ultimately, 6 years later, James Gandolfini dies. But
Yes.
that show will never lose sight of that show at all. Despite the fact that we'd wake up that Monday, we'll go to work that Monday and say, "Geez, these dream sequences, why can't they go back to just killing people and whatnot?" But
know.
now I just wish we can have a dream sequence or whatever, just to show that you looked forward to, just like you looked forward to All in the Family or the next episode of Cheers on a Thursday night on NBC back in the 80s.
Right.
Chris, we're not getting that anymore.
No, very few shows. I've heard people say Little Fires with Kerry Washington and Reese Witherspoon was one to check out.
Yeah.
There was another one. This actress I like, Diana Silvers, was recommending. I like people to watch. I can't remember what the name of it was, but another one. I mean, there's a couple on the TV network Freeform, which is owned by Disney's parent company ABC. There's two. There was a TV show called Siren, which I thought was very good.
I heard about that. Yeah.
And now there's this new show that's getting the second season is coming out on the 22nd. It's called Motherland Fort Salem. That is a very good show. I like the female empowerment. I like seeing witches fight alongside humans. So the General Sarah Alder, who's the head of the Fort Salem. She has been alive since 1693. She's, she and her fellow witches fled Europe to America to escape the persecution of witches. But of course, in Salem, living in Salem, they were persecuting witches then. So
Right.
at some point, she and the witches made a deal with the Americans that they would help them fight their wars if they would stop persecuting witches, and they did, and the witches started helping them fight their wars. And it's a really entertaining show. I think it's very well written.
Yeah.
The characters are very interesting. I love the main characters. This is a show where I love the main characters. Especially, I have a crush on Taylor Hickson, who plays Rael.
Right.
Rael Collar.
So name of that show again, because you're endorsing it. That's for sure.
Motherland Fort Salem
Motherland Fort Salem. Okay. On Netflix, Chris.
on Freeform.
God, I never even heard. What the hell is that? What is that?
It's a TV company owned by Disney's parent company, ABC.
Yeah. See, I watch way too much Fox, so I'm not watching these the TV shows. But good recommendation. Okay, so the focus today, and again, in and out of any given conversation, we could be talking about world peace, and somehow The Sopranos comes up in our discussions here in History Through the Eyes of a Millennial with Chris Pacifici. But we started noting, obviously, that gangster movies and The Sopranos was something that kept, coming up. So let's be exclusive to it. And for the first time, we offered the cameras here for our show. So that said, Adriana. Now, Adriana, I'm not saying the actresses or actors' names and so forth. Again, to me, they were real people, just like we described earlier. One of the most beautiful bodies and faces I've ever, very ethnic, obviously, very Italian, but just a gorgeous, gorgeous body. And of course, even Tony says, Chris, you're average looking. How did you get this broad?
I know, she's way out of your league. I'd say she's a 10 compared to you.
I felt so bad for Chris when he said that.
That's damn, Tony. Don't hold back.
Or when he talks to Bobby in season 1, get off the car, you fucking fat fuck.
I know.
It's Tony, come on.
It's
give him a break.
I would start recommending salads.
Yeah.
Or what was it? Paulie was saying to Christopher or someone. He's like, look at this. It's like an ad, look at this. It's like an ad for a weight loss program.
Yeah.
Before and way before.
Yeah. And it's funny because that's a scene where Tony has an episode later on when they rent the boat. And Paulie's thinking that he's going to be he's going to be killed.
Yeah.
But Tony is so annoyed because he's got so many things to worry about. He's got the world on his shoulders, and then Paulie Walnuts, who really my favorite character, driving the Cadillac, and just how annoying he was. So that joke that you just described, he's like, Tony, did you hear me? And he's at a banquet somewhere, and he has to explain. And Tony's like, I don't give a shit. He's looking at girls, and some girl walking by him in the nice. But Paulie Walnuts in real life apparently was a real life gangster to some degree and did some jail time.
Oh, really?
As did James Gandolfini. I don't know to which degree, but they weren't choir boys by any means.
No.
And Silvio, of course, was in the E Street Band with, and still is for that matter, with Bruce Springsteen. So again. The greatest show ever for many, many reasons. David Chase was a genius, and David Chase, Bobby talked about how David Chase actually called him up, says, "Hey, can I stop by?" And it was a complete surprise. I said, "Here it is. David Chase is going to stop by my house."
Yeah.
This is probably back in 2006, 2000, whatever, prior to the final season. So, it's almost like, Michael Corleone's visiting Frankie Five Angels. So he comes in. I think it was raining, whatever. He takes his raincoat off, and he tells him, it's like, "You're going to die in this episode." At the end of the meeting, it says, "Okay, you're going to die." Everyone dies, essentially. Not everybody, but it's the last season. But, even though Bobby, what's his name? Bakula.
Steve
Chappelle. I'm thinking of his character, Steve.
Bobby Bakula Jr.
Right. He's like, okay. But he was so honored that David Chase actually approached him and said, "Hey, you're done. But I wanted to tell you in person." He could have shown up at one of the readings, whatever the deal is. I'm not privy to all that information.
Right.
But it's good to have, because that was what it was to be a part of that show. Even if you were in for one episode or you're associated. I just learned recently a friend of mine's brother drove a car that had bullet marks on it from Jersey to Long Island or Queens, whatever it was. I said, "Hey, did he get credits? Was he on the credits forever?" No, he didn't get any credits. So anyone associated with that show would feel very, very proud. Nick DiPaolo, the comedian we saw up in Clayton a couple of years ago. He's actually been in there. And the guy, Uncle Cooper from Cooper Tires, I don't know if it's Uncle Cooper, but the Cooper Tire guy, where you see his face in the tire.
Yeah.
He was on there as well with Lauren Bacall in that episode. So,
oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So it was really, So, and then who could forget? Now I'm forgetting his name. Isn't this awful? When he had the intervention.
Oh, Christopher's
intervention. And this was, I wanted to talk about this earlier, how real it was.
Yes.
Because I remember Christopher had the intervention, so you didn't, and then that Monday, that week, whatever, later on, a couple of days later, my wife was in the bathroom, and she's like, "You know what? I was just thinking, and so she caught herself, of course, and this is, she says, I was wondering how Christopher's doing in rehab." Yeah. So, again, being the show as real as it was, and Christopher's being surrounded by, and again, I happen to have been in an intervention years ago, and it's very moving, and a lot of things happen. But that was the ugliest intervention ever.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's like it's like eventually everyone just starts beating him up, like for being a jerk.
Yeah, and he calls his mother a whore.
I know, and Polly just loses it,
and just beats him up.
I know. Both and Silvio and Benny come over and kick him too.
Yeah, Benny. Yeah, and Benny, of course, a young actor from the Wonder Years. So when David Chase, cast these guys as bad guys, thugs, it didn't matter. And then he also gets the Johnny Sack's wife, who was also in several episodes, a lot of episodes of Married with Children.
Yes, I remember seeing her in those.
So here it is, Al Bundy.
Yeah.
It's making fun of fat women. The show could never be made by today's standards.
No.
But Al Bundy was funny.
Yes.
But again, so a lot of people from different eras, from different time frames. Christopher himself, Imperiali, how do you say his last name?
Michael Imperioli.
Yeah, he did the read, and he didn't feel good about it. He felt like David Chase, he doesn't even look Italian. Chase is short for something, whichever. So he went in there, and of course he's got some good credits. Not to mention Spider in Goodfellas.
Yes.
Why don't you fuck yourself?
Tommy.
Why don't you fuck yourself, Tommy? Whoa, can you believe that? Can you believe that? We gonna take this shit? What's happening in this world?
And shoots him. I know. And
That's what's happened.
Robert's like, what is that effing matter with you?
Yeah.
So you're gonna go dig the hole. He says, "Get with the shovel and go dig the hole." You're gonna dig the hole.
Yeah, and Ray Liotta says, "He's dead." It's like,
well, yeah, he shot him in the chest.
Come on, don't give me that shit now. I'll get the shovel. So again, here it is. We're glorifying bad characters, portraying bad people, really, really bad people. But you know what, Chris? We love it. So are we guilty or what? Is it a guilty pleasure?
I think it is. This one young actress, Kiernan Shipka, she's like 21 years old, and she's a big fan of The Sopranos. She loves Tony.
Yeah.
She has Sopranos pajamas that have like Tony, like the Bing, the girl, the little
Yeah,
logo
right.
for the Bing.
Yeah.
And like cigars and other stuff on her pajama bottoms. She was binge watched The Sopranos. She's a big fan of James Gandolfini. It's really, a new generation's fallen in love with it.
Oh, I'm sure. It's just like you falling in love with stuff that happened, before you were born,
Right.
listening to Beatles songs and watching movies from the old days. Of course, in your your old days to you are days when I was alive. But again, you watch The Godfather, and then you see The Sopranos, and even though those movies were made before you were born, you totally understand them.
Yes.
Unfortunately, not enough kids in your generation or younger, for that matter, older, are have acclimated themselves with great cinema, with great shows, or for that matter, great music, which is unfortunate. But again, with Sopranos, it was at a point where I thought things were dead, but they brought it back alive, and then after '07, it's been dead again. So I haven't been excited about many things, unfortunately.
No, I was just saying, everyone keeps saying that the best season was season 4. It was the best, most well written.
Why is that? Why season 4? And I would dare say season 1 only because how new it was. It also had some famous episodes like the college episode. But why season 4?
People say it's like it was heavily steeped in metaphors.
Okay. Because there was 7, 8 seasons. What happened? What happened in season 4? Just give me it was the years after. It was the season after Ralphie. Just describe what happened there.
I think a lot of what do you call it?
Was that when Junior shot? When Junior shot
At Tony.
Tony. Yeah, and then he becomes the insurance salesman. With the monks. I didn't get that, but was that season 4?
Yeah, it was heavily steeped in metaphor. They were saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I think it was said, like Tony, like he was having dreams of him like visiting his ancestral estate.
Yeah.
And having dreams of like of big pussy and all that.
Right.
It's just, I think I don't know if it's like it was him having like guilt or something, because I think someone who's sociopathic, they can't really have guilt over what they've done. But
right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just like a lot of like it's like the show I think was like setting these characters up for like their downfall. I mean, Paulie is the only character on that show who doesn't die on screen.
No, he doesn't. Although, does he get shot at, or is he running at the end from the? I know Silvio gets shot in the car.
No,
and that's the car, by the way, that my friend's brother drove. Go ahead.
No, Paulie dies of cancer off screen.
Oh, does he really?
Yeah, he's sitting there like outside. I
don't remember that. Wow.
Satriel's. He tells Tony he has cancer. He's sitting out Satriel's, sunning himself.
Yeah, right.
And that cat.
The cat.
That thing gets possessed by Christopher. Comes and sits next to him.
Yeah, but but we don't see him. He's not in a hospital bed for the last episode. But that's the assumption, I guess.
He just sits there enjoying himself, and that's the last scene we see him.
All right, so another episode. I don't know what season it was at, but Paulie. There's 2 episodes that stand out with Paulie. Okay, I got to remember both. We got to cover this. Mm-hmm. The one where he finds out his mother is not his mother. In fact, it's his aunt that is his mother. That was a nun, and she's in her deathbed. Remember? And she's describing, she's like, Paulie, I'm burning up, Paulie. Come on, what the hell? Then he's realizing that she's telling him that I'm not your aunt, I'm your mother. I was a bad girl, Paulie. I was a bad girl. And he's like, holy shit. So then he takes it out on his mom, and it's so sad. He throws the TV out the window, and there's a resident going by in a wheelchair, and the thing crashes on the ground. She doesn't even hear that little touch. That as brutal as the scene is, you still have to laugh at some of that stuff. But he does get back with his aunt, now his mother, who we thought it was his real mother, who's a passive, beautiful woman who's just trying to, she's not doting, she's just trying to be a good lady who happens to have this miserable, stepson, obviously, or nephew, who she raised as her son, who's giving her a life, obviously, in the nursing home. But she's also responsible for setting him up with her friend who had the money under the mattress. And of course, Paulie knows that there's money under the mattress and goes to one of the most brutal scenes ever when he strangles her to death.
But he suffocates her.
Suffocates, exactly.
With a pillow, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's like, it's reality. It's like, wait a minute. They're portraying people that we're not supposed to like. He's literally going into a woman's house. He doesn't see the car in the driveway, and they set that up brilliantly. It's being serviced. Whoever that actress was, she was great. It's like, you're here to rob me. Oh, no, I'm here to have a cup of coffee. Like it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And then he has to strangle her. Terrible scene, Chris.
Yes, it is. And it's just like, damn. It's like, when he lifts the pillow, it's like, eesh.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and then she's clearly. So when Tony is thinking about killing Paulie, he doesn't. But another great scene, and again, you don't see it coming, is when Christopher gets back on drugs and they're driving the car. It's called the Kennedy episode, whichever. There's always little hidden things that Chase puts in the storyline, including the titles, where they're driving along and Christopher's high on whichever, and he goes to the radio and he's screwing it up, and then he drives into oncoming traffic, and there's young teenage girls driving with a permit, whichever, and they have to dodge it, and so in other words, he rolls over 1,000,000 times, and there he is, he's bleeding from his nose, the cops are on their way, this guy's going to jail. So what does Tony do, Chris?
He like suffocates him.
Yeah.
He said, "I never passed a drug test." And I think Tony killed him like also because he was a danger to his daughter, his child.
He saw the baby seat in the back.
I know, and Tony was looking at that too as he was suffocating him. He thinks this was like a mercy killing him.
It really was a mercy killing.
And Tony has like this haunting like look on his face. He's like,
he does.
He cared about this kid throughout the whole show, and now he's the one that's ending up like killing him for good. And he's.
It was a good decision. It really. I mean, as brutal as it was a good decision. Christopher was talk about sociopath.
Like, he was just out of control.
Totally. And then of course he's getting into acting, and he wants to write scripts. And he hooks up with that redhead there, the producer.
She was a vice president
of something or other, and he's got this this idea, with Claw, whatever it was, and then they make the movie. And the guy who does it, he's from Wings. I forget his name now. The good-looking guy that had the gambling issue that becomes Christopher's sponsor. I should know this guy's name. His mother was in Cagney and Lacey, whichever. But good-looking guy from Wings. So. That character was this pretty boy that is mixed up with the wrong people. It's very similar to David in the second season when he was the guy from Terminator who has the sporting goods place, and he's got a gambling issue. So whenever when an average person who's not Italian, who's not mixed up with them, gets mixed up with them, he's like, whoop, something's going to happen to these guys. And ultimately, Christopher kills him because he's under the influence. So I again, brutal scenes. But it kept you watching, Chris.
It did. It's just like this craziness, being in the world of organized crime. It's just kept people bringing them back. I think it was the combination of the craziness, the story, the characters, that made us keep coming back and keep falling in love, but also like hating these characters. I mean. I think the most hated character on that show was Ralphie. I think,
no doubt, Ralphie and Richie. Can't forget Richie. I saw Imperial. How do you say his name?
Michael Imperioli.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah. By the way, I saw him he's in Stand By Me with when they have the high school about Joe Clark, the principal in Eastside High in Jersey, and he's one of the students that he kicks out of the school on the stage. So he was in here, there, everywhere. But he even said in an interview on a podcast that Ralphie that Richie just didn't have a good side to him at all. No. Ralphie, there were scenes where you could laugh because he'd crack a joke about a 40-pound tumor or whatever the deal was. But, or 400-pound tumor.
90 pounds.
90 pounds. Was it 90 pounds? You're good. See, I'll tell you, Chris, he's on top of things. So, and bad joke, by the way. But nonetheless, it was a big part of that particular episode. But he said, Richie didn't have a good side to him at all.
No, he was just 100% evil. I think Tony was just, even Tony and Junior were like, man. And I remember Tony was telling Silvio, this guy wants to whack me. And Silvio was like, being the eternally loyal guy he is to Tony, he's like, that mother effer.
Yeah.
And he's like, nice. And he goes, nice, huh? And he's going to marry my sister too.
Yeah, right. That's right.
I think Richie and Ralphie had to go.
Oh, without a doubt. And then, of course, when Richie dies, that's when he punches Janice. And Janice was so good in that scene. Now, here's the deal. You're on Facebook. You're a Sopranos fan. Are you like me, where an excerpt of it will pop up on Facebook when you're going down, the timeline? Happens all the time. The one that pops up the most, because I watch it a lot, and the computer knows that, the algorithms know that, is when Richie gets killed. So it's like, and so what if he was gay? Who cares? Because he was referring to his son because he was a ballroom dance or whatever the deal was, and the way he punches her and the way she kind of holds on to him face. And then she's like, I'm going to get a gun. You know what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he looks at it as, I don't have any time for this bullshit.
And she shoots
and
him.
then she shoots him twice. So, yeah. And again, you don't see it coming because, Richie was only on for one season. He was only on for one season.
Yeah.
And that was, but again, you never knew where this was going anyway. You just learned about this show the year before. You loved it. Now you get this guy, Richie. He gets killed. David loses his sporting goods place. Janice moves back out to Seattle. So you never know what the next season was going to be like. And then Ralphie comes in season 3.
Yeah, remember Phil Leotardo?
Yes.
What'd you think of him?
Well, again, I thought he was great as that character. He was really hateable.
Yes.
But I didn't like how they would bring in someone that we were familiar with. But that's neither here. That's just my personal opinion.
What's
but
his
he
name?
was really, I don't know his name.
Vince something.
I call him Billy Bats.
Yeah, Billy Bats or Frankie from Casino.
Yeah, or Casino. Or he was also in Raging Bull, too.
Yeah.
but
yeah,
yeah.
I was kind of glad that when he got whacked.
It was a brutal scene. He gets
Phil.
run over, yeah. Yeah.
I feel bad. I felt bad for Johnny Sack. I mean, I think I think he and Tony were on good terms.
Yeah.
I think Tony did respect.
Yeah.
He and Tony respected one another.
They did. They met in hidden places.
They did, and they talked. I remember like when Johnny bought that Maserati,
Right.
traded his Mercedes in for that Maserati.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Tony's like, kind of draws attention, no?
Yeah.
True, friends of ours, but none of them would own it.
Yeah.
He's like, how much did it cost you? And Johnny goes, 99 and change. And Tony's like, you're spending like you're already on the throne.
Yeah.
I had a good year. Oh, God bless. But
Yeah.
And Johnny's net worth when he was arrested by the FBI was estimated at $5 million.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, $5 million. I don't know if I had $5 million, I would buy a Maserati.
Right.
But yeah.
Are you saying $5 million is not enough to buy a Maserati? Or
I'm saying even if like that, okay, so you have $5 million, you buy it cost you that much. It was 2004 that episode aired,
right.
so but obviously it was brand new.
Yeah.
It looked brand new. I'm saying, I'd probably buy it, but I probably use a good chunk of the money,
Right.
$5 million.
Yeah. And they say, it's just, it goes back to Goodfellas. Is I love that car. What did I tell you? Oh, I love that car. So maybe a little bit drawback to that, but again, knowing what we knew about Godfather, Goodfellas, Casino, I wasn't a big fan of. And we saw Billy Bat's character there. He was good. Then you get Robert Loggia to appear back in season 5, 6, whichever, and how he beats up the guy that's cutting down the tree, the gardener.
Holy crap!
Oh boy! And again, in the same if not the same episodes that same season, Paulie Walnuts does the same thing when he knocks the guy over the head with a shovel, and it's a turf war. Like, hey, you got to get out of this. But Robert Loggia is, come on, I want the action.
I know.
Then they put the TVs in his garage, and then they send him back to jail.
Yeah.
That was there. But
I think he had to go.
Yeah.
Fitz Lamana.
Yeah. That was his character's name.
No. What's his name?
But so you had appearances like that. You would have, he was on for at least 2-3 episodes, and he was the one that did the valet parking at the Jewish wedding, and they stole all the cars.
Yes.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, who else I want to say? When Paulie and that other guy went to rob the Colombians.
Yeah, right.
The big heavy guy was running faster than he was to catch that one janitor, and they cracked it, and they shoot the guy, and they're like, and there's like a that money thing that counts all the money.
Yeah, right.
And it's like spitting out money, and Paulie's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I know. And
It's in the oven.
It was in the dishwasher.
Dishwasher. Yeah. When the big fat guy was running. Yeah. And then season 1, where the guy was running through the forest.
Yes.
What was his name?
Mikey Polisi.
Yeah, and he was the guy that Junior wanted. Of course, Junior thinks he's the guy. He's at a tailor shop or something, and he hears someone dies of an overdose. Someone's got to pay the price, so it's got to be Irish or the Irish guy. Again, Chris, brutal scene where he throws him over the. And it's like it says, and then they talk to the 2 or 3 black guys that were there. So, so what did you see? I just saw someone that said it didn't motherfucking want to live anymore. Okay, yeah, you're right. Of course, then he gets killed.
For killing Christopher's friend Brendan.
Yeah,
he's like my friend Brendan. You shot him in his bathtub naked.
Right.
No chance to run.
Right. No chance to run. And that's all, Jack. Whichever. Another brutal scene where the Junior was in the car. They were meeting in a back alley somewhere.
Yeah.
And the guy's in a Camaro, and they're trying to work out something, and and then he makes a joke about Tony seeing a therapist, and then Junior didn't like that. So
No.
he said, "Oh, I don't like that at all. You got to do something with this guy." I said, "Okay, whatever." I said, "Hold on," and then he shoots him.
Yeah.
And then Junior's looking at him as they drive away in the Continental.
Or how about when what's his name? Patsy's twin there was saying,
Yeah.
this is what runs the group, like the mafia or the group.
Right.
And he drops the guy up. He's like, "There you go, kid. There you go. You big mouth."
Yeah.
And shoots him. And like he's like, "Ah."
Yeah,
Because
it's so loud.
Because you can't shoot someone in a closed area.
Yeah,
because
right.
The gunshots are loud. I knew when he said that. I was like, "Oh, this guy's gonna get whacked."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But he's just like he's shooting off his. It's like these guys that shoot, and also with Fat Dom, he was
Yeah.
shooting off his mouth about Vito,
yeah.
and like Silvio and
Yeah. That I forget his name, but I know who you're talking about.
and the other guy.
Yeah, the other guy.
I know, and they like they actually show like it
Yeah.
made sounds of him stabbing
him.
It's
Yeah.
like damn.
Yeah. And the guy was obnoxious from the word get go when he walked in there.
Yeah, all Phil's guys, all Phil's guys, like him. And when his brother whacked Lorraine Caluzzo there,
Yeah, right. Yeah. But do they whack her?
they do. They shoot her boyfriend there, and then they shoot her in the back of the head.
See, I don't remember. Is that the same? I didn't get her because she was the one that said, "I'll suckle your cocks," and then he shoots through the phone book. But then they kill her at another time.
Yeah, because it was a mock execution to warn her she didn't kick up that money to Johnny Sack. They
Yeah.
would kill her.
Wow.
But she ended up kicking like to a friend of a father's to Carmine Lupertazzi Jr.
Yeah.
because Senior was friends with her father.
Yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. Now,
I think Lupertazzi and Caluzzo were cousins. I think.
so Carmine's son, good-looking guy. By the way, went to Christ the King High School where I went. He wanted to be an actor too, essentially, because he always tried to be real smart and use words he couldn't quite understand. He would use them in the wrong context.
Yeah.
So again, those little subtleties that were happening in the show and some in characters here, there, everywhere, I thought were very well done. But that said, again, getting back to then you bring in Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi plays cousin Tony. And I was disappointed with him going on the show, to be quite honest. Again, because Steve Buscemi, you've seen him in a ton of things prior to that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he did a good job. Not to mention, Chris, he directed some of the episodes. He directed the episode with the Russian in the forest.
Really?
Yeah, he did, and that's before he was. So obviously, he must have known David Chase enough to be associated with the show. But then he comes on as cousin Tony.
I know.
I just it was good. Again, even the worst episodes are better than everything before and after. But I think I could have seen another actor play that part. I don't think he fit in that role at all.
And did you see also when Johnny tells Tony to go kill him,
Right.
or else he's gonna rain a shitstorm upon his family of likes which he's never seen.
Right.
And so Tony goes to upstate, shoots him because he knows that Phil is gonna torture him for
yeah.
killing his baby brother.
Yeah, right.
And so Tony Mercy kills him by shooting him in the head, and Phil goes up there,
Yeah.
goes to look inside, and he sees Tony laying there, gunshot wound in his head.
It's too late. He couldn't torture him.
I know. You can tell he looks a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, and of course he does, however, catch up to Vito.
Yes.
And he tortures him with a broomstick, whichever, in the hotel room. Again, uncomfortable, no doubt. David Chase and the producers said, "Hey, we want one of the characters to be gay," and apparently, this is the way I read it. I could be wrong. And Vito said, "I'll be that guy."
Yeah.
And he again, that lingered for a while. They going up to New Hampshire, and by the way, all those scenes were still shot in New Jersey. But he would go up there, and then he shoots the guy after he accidentally runs into this guy in the middle of the forest, and he shoots him because he can't be found or discovered. So anyone who just loosely gets associated with these bad guys, you feel bad for them. But that's life, and then you just got to stay away from that, as fate would suggest.
It's like never do business with the mafia.
Never says look. I mean, banks are tough enough sometimes, depending upon your financial situation, but don't go to a mob guy, especially when you have to get settle a gambling debt, because they can set the rules at any given time.
I know.
So
Do you remember, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, remember, in the first episode, how of season 1, how Christopher and Tony are driving past this office building, and Christopher's like, "Isn't that guy Mahaffey?"
Yeah, right.
Back up.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they're Christopher's and Tony runs him over with Christopher's brand new Lexus,
Right,
$60,000 Lexus,
and it damages it. Yes.
and he's like, and he breaks the guy's leg. And he's like, "Where's my money?" He punches him in the knee. He says, "Where's my money?"
Yeah.
And Tony's like, and Christopher's checking out because he broke one of the headlights.
Yeah.
And Tony's like, Tony's like, "What are you doing? Get over here!"
Yeah, right, right.
And he goes like, and Christopher's like, "That's $3,000 here. $3,000. $3,000 to fix that headlight."
Right.
And like kicking him, punching him. I'm like, and Tony's just like,
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah, and who could forget me? And Christopher had to deal with him first, but the guy kicks him in the balls. And
know.
that's when, and Tony's having a good old time chasing him in this office complex.
It's like kind of like scary. Like Tony's getting so much enjoyment, like trying to run this guy over.
Oh, and again, and the other scene, many other scenes. Tony's out somewhere in a crappy bay in Jersey, because that's what Jersey looks like. Even if it's even waterfront looks like shit in Jersey, in my opinion, especially across from New York. But they're under somewhere in a marina, and this guy's getting ready for his boat, and blah blah blah. And he said, "Hey, Tony, he's looking. How'd you get here?" And of course, he shoots him, and then he takes his boat.
It's like takes the fish, hides the gun inside a fish.
Yeah.
And now, why did they have to whack that guy? I'm trying to remember.
You know what? The guy that said, "Hey, Tony, you're losing weight." The guy with the hat that he met at the
captain's
diner.
hat, yeah.
So there was a lot of guys that, again, you would get into a show, and a lot of things didn't carry over from the previous show. So I guess you just had to accept this guy did something wrong.
Yeah.
And then he deserved to get whacked. But you never really knew. Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm trying to think what was another good episode. Or like when Christopher and Georgie are digging up that body.
Yes.
And it's like, and Georgie's like, "Oh, is that him?"
Yeah.
And Christopher's like, "That had to be some effing coincidence if it wasn't."
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. They're up there in the yeah. That's with the Steve Buscemi episode, and who could forget? Of course, his first killing was the Russian guy or Polish, whatever it was.
Yeah, this Polish guy at Satriel's.
Yeah, Satriel's, and he shoots him as he's doing the cocaine on
sniffing cocaine,
on the
yeah.
cleaver.
Yeah.
And then he and Paulie, check that, and Uncle Pussy are trying to throw the body into a dumpster somewhere in some train yard, and then you can hear the body banging up against. But again, there's this obsession, this compulsive need to see people in this society that you and me, I would never do it. I mean, by the way, I didn't have the guts or the strength or anything to be a part of that. But I could tell you this though, Chris, living in Woodhaven, Queens, and so forth, being you could see it in front of you. Anyone with a Monte Carlo with whiskers, more than likely, was somehow or other loosely associated with the mob back in the 70s and 80s. But I saw them as thugs, bad guys that would turn on each other if they had to. A lot of them skinny, not very strong, but together they were a dominant force. So you didn't screw with them at all, Chris.
Remember the episode where Tony and Pussy whack Matt Bevilacqua?
Yes. Oh yeah,
Chris-
in the snack shack.
Yes, because
Yeah.
he shot at Christopher.
Right.
And Temper not killed him.
Right.
But that put him in the hospital.
Right.
And I think Tony's like interrogating him, trying to make him feel comfortable.
Right.
Tony's smoking a cigar.
Right.
And gives him a Pepsi because he's trying to see whether or not
Diet.
a Diet Pepsi because
Yeah.
he was trying to see whether or not Richie had anything to do with the whacking. And once he sees that Richie had absolutely nothing to do with the whacking, he just breaks the act and just shoots him.
Yeah.
And he and Pussy put a bunch in after shooting him in the head,
Right.
shoot up his body, and
Yeah.
it's like wow.
Yeah, and I don't know if I should say tragically, but that guy would later get into a real life situation. That actor who was also in A Bronx Tale.
Yes.
Who
Yeah,
who was
I
supposed to
remember.
be the next De Niro, essentially. His career doesn't go anywhere, but he gets into drugs. He's up there in the Bronx. He and another buddy start to break into a house to get drugs or money, whatever the deal was. An off-duty cop happens to be next door. The guy he was associated with kills the cop, so guilt by association. I think he did 10 years in jail. In fact,
Wow.
he wasn't that far from here. He was in Rome, New York. But now he's out. He's been out. Hopefully he's got his act back together again, but that certainly didn't help his career, Chris.
No.
No, that will never help your career. All right, well, we've been going on and on for almost an hour about The Sopranos, but here's the thing. We can go on forever about this show. We can go on and on about a lot of things, about gangster movies in general and making comparisons and talking about various characters, many of which that we didn't include today. But this is what Christopher talks about. And again, because Chris just described, your parents are, early 50s, right? I'm assuming that they're probably in that age.
Late 50s.
Late
early
50s,
60s.
my age. I have the similar scenario in that I'm the youngest of 5, and everyone is much older. I always say I was the only child of 5 because there was a big gap between me and everyone else. But as a consequence, a good one, I got associated with things that they were already watching. So in other words, when I was 8, they were 14 to 18 years old, and they were getting into Bonnie and Clyde in the late 60s. They knew about Planet of the Apes. So these things were on my mind, and then eventually I would see them. And then I actually saw The Godfather when I was 11 years old. I also saw Deliverance when I was 11. My mom didn't know what she was taking me into. But these are the same things. So we have a lot of parallels, Chris, because your parents introduced you to a whole new world, and you've embraced it, Chris.
Yes, I've embraced this culture of inspiration, of like originality. I think is a big part of it. It's originality. They have a system or a recipe for making things music timeless.
That would last forever. Thanks to David Chase, thanks to Francis Ford Coppola, thanks to Martin Scorsese, depicting a part of thug life in a dramatic way, a very violent way. Others try to replicate it. I'm not the biggest Quentin Tarantino fan, but I do appreciate a lot of his stuff. We've talked about that. I did see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I thought that was excellent, even though it was 5 hours long, whichever. But again, he comes from that legacy, too, of watching these. Plus, he was a big Walter Hill fan and so forth. Chris, anything else to add to our Sopranos show today? I think we covered a decent amount. I wish we could have gotten into more first of all, we never talked about the wife and the Tony scenes with Carmela.
No, I like Carmela.
She was fantastic. She really was.
Remember when the episode where Polly and Sylvia were bringing up that Jewish guy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's like because he was the son-in-law to the father they were working for.
Yeah.
And they're dragging up to like Satrial's, and Polly's like, get up. He's like. Polly's like, Sylvia was like, we're doing all this because you won't go through with the divorce, and the guy goes, it's not that simple, and he's like, why? And Polly goes, why? You fill your name out on a piece of paper, and the guy's like, I don't like you. Yeah, well, I don't like you. How's that?
Yeah.
Can you believe this guy?
Yeah.
What? You work for nothing?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And Polly goes, let's force feed him his sombrero.
Yeah.
And he goes, she wants to go to Israel. I send her. She needs something done to her body. I pay. I feed her. I clothe her. I put a roof over her head. And I spent a fortune.
Yeah.
On top of that, I worked for her father for 20 years and put up all his abuse.
Yeah.
I should walk without a nickel.
Yeah.
And Polly's like, yeah, tough effing luck, ain't it, pal?
Yeah.
Poof.
Yeah. Don't they take the bell, and then pound it over his head in the hotel?
Before they do that, he's like, it's like bubkiss. Say bubkiss, Polly.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That's how they say nothing.
Yeah.
F that. That's just how I say nothing.
Yeah. Maybe.
How's that for nothing?
Yeah.
Douche.
Yeah.
Douche.
And I guess at that point he paid him. And that guy was a douche. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
He had a whorehouse there. He was a Hasidic Jewish fella.
Yeah.
Also wrapped up in bad people. And by the way, the guy who played Maury in Goodfellas, he played one of those characters as well.
Really?
In fact, at one point, that's when James Gandolfini, Tony's character, goes up. Hey, look, ZZ Top, he called him because he had the long beard and so forth. But and another episode with Burt Young when he had to go after Mustang Sally, his nephew, and then he dies, crashes into a billboard and whatnot. Another scene where he walks up the typical split ranch in Jersey and whatnot, and he sees his buddy there.
It shoots him in the ear first.
Yeah, right.
And the guy, because his roommate's like,
What the fuck?
And and shoots him in the ear and shoots his partner. Then and then he he grabs like his bad ear he just shot and shoots and like, damn.
Yeah. And of course he's coughing the whole time because he's that's Bobby's father. I don't see the resemblance there,
No,
but that's
me
Bobby's
neither.
father was. And so we talked about Vito and his character, but before we go, I know Meadow had various boyfriends, some better than others.
Yeah.
The one biracial guy I wanted to beat the shit out of him. I didn't like that guy at all because he was disrespectful to Tony.
And Jackie Jr.
And Jackie Jr. of course, and caught with the whore and so forth. Jackie was good when he gets killed in Boonton. Now I just forgot what we were just saying. I wanted to include it. Meadows' boyfriend from California, tall, skinny, good-looking guy, and he has no idea what he's getting himself into. He takes a job as a construction helper somewhere.
I remember.
And then Paulie, one of my favorite scenes, Paulie Walnuts, and this also pops up on my timeline, comes up, hey, take the dog shit out of my treads. And he's got, of course, the classic, Cadillac there. So someone, I forget Vito or someone says, "Hey, that's Meto's boyfriend. Why don't you tell me? Hey, make sure you tell her you got that from Uncle Paulie." And that whole and then he sees the guy get hit in the face with the glass,
it was
with the bottle.
Yeah, Gene. Yeah, because Paulie Jr.
Yeah.
out of line, and Gene takes a glass samples bottle and smashed against his face, and like Patsy's like, oh,
Yeah, right.
It's like, I knew that was coming.
Yeah, right.
And Melo's boyfriend's like freaking out, and the woman's like trying to like
Yeah, right.
trying to calm him down.
Did you say that was? Did you what? Junior?
Paulie Jr.
That was his son? No.
I mean, I've heard people say that was his son.
Really? Okay, I didn't know. Okay, because that guy, the guy who took the bottle and crashed it over his face,
Yeah.
he would later commit suicide.
Yeah, Gene. Yeah, Eugene.
In Members Only. The episode was Members Only. Great episode because that was, again, David Chase would obviously sit with his writers and say, okay, we got to have, we have these guys, we have Benny, we have everybody that pops in and out of these episodes, but let's center on one now. And that's exactly what they do. So they center on him, and he wants out. He's got inheritance. He wants to buy a house down in Florida. He's looking at it on the computer with his wife. He's all excited, but he can't break, he's got this allegiance. He made an oath.
Yeah.
So now and then of course you discover that he's also cooperating with the FBI. And then he goes up to Boston. He kills the guy in the restaurant. They go, "Hey man!" And then he shoots him 3 times.
Yeah.
And then that same episode, he commits suicide.
Yeah, now, why did he kill that guy in that restaurant? Why did he have to
Again,
kill?
the only thing I can think of is just another throw-in thing that no one knew anything about. But Christopher says, "Hey, we got you got a job to do. You got to go up to Boston." Says, "Well, what level are you at?" "We're beyond that. So now we got to kill him." I mean, in code, it would not in those words, of course.
Yeah.
He says, "Oh, okay." Because he goes, walks in, and then they're playing to show or illustrate that it was happening in Boston. You can hear a radio in the background of the Boston Celtic game, but I guess it was shot in Jersey as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I was gonna say
But that guy was good because his son was on drugs. He had problems. So you felt, again, here's another bad guy that takes the bottle and puts it in the guy's face.
Yeah.
That was brutal because he made a little girly joke. Because they're busting your balls.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Vito says, "No, that's not going to go over too well."
And Vito's like, that's when breaking balls goes too far. That instance, and also the instance with that where Fat Don was making fun of Vito.
Yes. Yeah.
That's when breaking balls goes too far.
Yeah, it goes way too far.
It's like never bust a wise guy's chops.
Right. Never again. And the other thing was, and we'll finish on this. They just interviewed. I just saw an interview with a real life gangster from the Franchese family, I believe. He lived out in Long Island. He's been in and out of jail. He's got away from the mob. Again, the mob's not what it used to be.
No.
But the one thing he said, and he said a lot of things in an interview. He said, first of all, if any made guy actually admitted that he was seeing a therapist, he would be whacked, and the therapist would be whacked. And he rattled off a litany of other things about that. But the one thing, he talked about other things outside The Sopranos and so forth, but he made very clear that would never have happened. But the one thing he did say is he thinks Robert De Niro thinks he's a real gangster. And I thought that was really well said because someone's got to take Robert De Niro and tone him down. What he said about the previous president and whatnot and obnoxious stuff. I love his movies. I love everything, essentially everything he's ever done, including Meet the Parents and so forth, because he's De Niro. He's Robert De Niro. But I think a lot of these guys think too much about themselves, Chris, in a sense. Like they're real life gangsters.
I know that they're big shots. That they think they're the shit.
Yeah, and to some degree, and I know even when you see pictures of the cast of The Sopranos, they fit that mode. But why not? Hey, if I was in The Sopranos, I'd probably do the same thing.
I'm surprised the psychiatrist there was never whacked or Tony for I think and people defended Tony for when they mocked him for seeing a psychiatrist. Junior being the most noble example.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, and then later on, of course, his wife Carmela goes to see a therapist as well. She says, "How much do I owe you?" And the guy says, "I don't take blood money." So there was always that realization, and Carmela felt it because she walked into the grocery store one day, and I don't know whose wife it was, but someone who was a maid guy. He was killed, and now his wife is selling samples at a grocery store. So she lived in this 4,000 square foot house somewhere in Jersey, and now she's displaying food. So they always felt they were on the brink of losing everything.
Yes, and that Caroline Lupertazzi, his wife was saying, I don't want to die. He walked away from the mafia.
Yeah.
And they gave it all, and to Johnny and Phil. And it was like, his wife was saying to him, I don't want to die the richest widow on Long Island.
Yeah, right. You see, that's what it's all about. And again, when it comes down to it, it displayed the brutality of it. It's like if you're going to get into this world, a lot of shit's going to happen. So real quick, who survives The Sopranos? Well, Johnny Sack dies in prison, right?
Yes.
He dies in prison. Silvio gets shot. We don't know if he died. We know that Paulie Walnut says he had cancer, but you know the last scene we see him, he's there sunning with the cat. Christopher is dead.
Yes.
Tony, we don't know what happened that day when
No.
when the guy walks into the restaurant. And there's so many other characters. Adriana obviously dies.
Yeah, Silvio got her.
Silvio, who was the Jewish guy, the producer? He had a wing, sing, whatever his name was. He lives. And of course, you know, a lot of the New York guys die as well. So
I think Patsy survives.
Patsy survives, yeah, and Beansy essentially survives, even though he's in a wheelchair. That's again another brutal scene when it's like, what? Because he didn't fucking see it in the can, you know, that
Yeah.
whole thing. And it was brutal because he goes to the restaurant, he sees him, hey, what's going on, Richie? You know, hey, what's up? And then brutal, just terrible. And then he beats him up in the restaurant. Then he waits for him to come out of the restaurant, and he runs him over in a car.
Yeah.
And then he says, "Well, now you got to pay for a ramp." And then he still goes to the hospital and says, "You better not, you know, talk
to
about
Tony-
me."
talk to Tony
Amazing,
Soprano, yeah.
amazing. Just very uncomfortable, needless to say.
Yes.
Well, I don't even know. Episode 13.
Yes.
I think it was episode 13. Now, just to let everyone know, this is the first time we've done this with cameras, with multiple cameras. As you can see, we're going in and out of beautiful downtown Watertown, New York, here on a Thursday in middle of June of 2021, talking to Chris Pacifici on his show, History Through the Eyes of Millennials. So, in other words, we typically have done this all 12 episodes on audio only. And of course, I'll extract this as an audio only show as well. But Chris, what did you think about this?
I enjoyed it. This is cool.
Yeah,
I love this. Is the first video, and yeah, it's fun to see like the video. Like I feel because I think it gives them more like an interview
Yeah.
type thing. But also like it's a podcast.
Yeah, it is. And we're sitting across from each other here in a long conference table here at the H2O Studios here on Public Square. So, Chris, excellent. Sopranos' greatest show of all time. I think we can agree on that.
One of the greatest shows of all
One of the
time.
greatest shows. And we will be looking forward to the movie about the Young Saints of Newark. I should know the name of it, but I really don't. It's a goofy title, in my opinion. They should just call it Young Sopranos in my book.
Yeah.
But that's me. I'm not David Chase. For everyone here, Chris, great show.
Yes. Thank you very much.
For everyone here at the H2O Studios in History Through the Eyes of Millennial, I'm Glenn Curry. I hope you have a good day. Take one last look at Public Square, and we'll see you guys real soon.